Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make these candy spirals wirework earrings. Now this is to match the previous pieces that are made in this series, so of course I'm going to leave links to that in the description box down below if you haven't seen them already. But these earrings are a lovely addition to the set, and you can also really customize them depending on your personal preference. Now just to let you know, I'm also going to have these earrings available in my Etsy shop if you're interested. I'm going to also leave a link to that in the description box down below. Otherwise, if you want to learn how to make them, then stay tuned. So these are the materials that we'll need. First of all, I have two different gauges of regular round copper wire here. The first one is a 0.8mm. This is the thicker gauge, so the base wire. And then I have a 0.5mm. This is going to be the wire we're going to do the embellishment with. And then the beads that I'm using are these 4mm rounds here. Now these specific ones are some blue quartz gemstone rounds, but you're not limited to this size in either the beads or the wire even. You can use other gauges as well. And then of course we just need our earring findings as well. I'm just using these earring posts and butterfly bags, you can use whatever you want to. And then of course just some jump rings to attach all of it together. So don't forget to check out the description box for the material list and links as well. Otherwise, let's get all of it ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths of our wires, and what I'm showing you is per earring. So first of all, we need 25 centimeters of our 0.8mm, the base wire. And then we need 6 lengths of our 0.5mm here of about 35 centimeters each. And these are for the embellishment. Remember, these are all for one earring, so we'll need this times 2. So then to get started, what we're going to need to do is start attaching some wires together. But I'm just first of all going to use the base wire, so the single length there. And then what I'm actually going to do is just separate my bunch of wires. This is 6 wires of the 0.5mm into 2 groups with 3 in each. And I'm just going to put one group out of the way for now and just start with 3 of those wires. And then I'm just starting with one of them here, and I want to attach all 3 one at a time to the base wire. And I'm working towards one end on the base wire. You want to leave a little length. You can start about 5 or so centimeters in. And then the 0.5mm here, I just want to start kind of towards the end of it. Just have a short little tail to be able to hold on to. And then you literally just want to wrap this around like this one full time, so the tail is going out to one side and the length is coming out to the other side. Now you can also just to make sure that it's nice and tight, just squeeze it together. Make sure it's tight around the base wire there. And you just want to grab the next one then. Same thing, place it behind and then just wrap it around once. Make it nice and tight, and then that's sitting right next to the other one, and just attach the last one in the same way. Once I then have my 3 wires attached here, we then want to start adding the beads in. So you just want to smooth out your wires, and they're sitting right next to each other, so we kind of have them in this group of 3 still. Make sure to keep them like that, and also make sure we're starting a little bit up the base wire there. Now you can move the wires currently up and down, but just make sure you have a length down here. So I'm grabbing my first bead, and I then want to put that onto the end of my base wire, and then bring it all the way down here. And the first one will kind of be the fiddliest one just because everything is still loose, but then I like to hold the bead from the back and make sure it's sitting right above where the wraps are. I then keep hold of that and grab onto these 3 wires as if they were one, but making sure they stay laying flat next to each other so they don't cross over each other. And then I start to bring them around the bead. I kind of like to use my thumb to support them. Bring them around the side and then over the top of the base wire here. And then back underneath to come out towards the same side where they were coming out to before. And you can see I still have them laying flat next to each other in that group of 3. They are just now wrapping around the bead along the side and then just above it, over the top of the base wire, and then back underneath it and straight out to the same side. And now this bead has basically been trapped in place, so that's not going to move anymore. So straight away I'm going to grab my next bead and put that onto the wire. I can find the hole. Now let that drop all the way down, and that's going to sit right above the wires there, so basically it can't go any further. And now we just repeat. So again, grab the group of wires, and if you need to along the way, to smooth them out, bring them around the side of the bead, so you can see it's going to look like the first time we did it. Above it, over the top of the base wire, and then back underneath to come out towards the same side. And we now have two sitting in the exact same position. You just grab your next bead, add it to the wire, if I can find the hole somewhere, yeah, I think there it is. Just let it drop down, and we literally repeat. So around the side, making sure the wires stay flat next to each other. And you can see we're just building it up like this, making sure we don't have any gaps between anything. So just keep going like this until you used up all your beads. So I now added all my beads here except for the very last one, because this is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to add that. And then instead of just using the same group of wire and go around there, we need to just do something before we do that. So I'm actually going to flip my piece around, and this is the end that I started out with. Now that's kind of furthest away from me. So this open end here, down here that I was working with, wrapping this group of wire around the beads. What I'm now going to do before we wrap that final bead, we need to grab the other group of wire, so the remaining 3 of the 0.5 mil, and then take one at a time of them and attach them in the same way that we attached the other ones, but just on the opposite end here, making sure that that last bead that we added is pushed up. Obviously it's loose, so it can kind of come down, but just make sure it's between all the other beads and the new wire that we're attaching. And then just attach this wire in the same way that we attached the other ones. So have a short little tail, and then bring it around one full time. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then grab the next one. Repeat the same. You can see we're just attaching these in the same way. And obviously do the same with the last one as well, so we again have all 3 from this group attached on this end. So now we have them attached, we need to start kind of also working our way back up the other side. But what we just want to do first of all is I'm pushing the wires that we just attached all the way up, so basically they can't go any further, and then that's going to trap that bead sitting there. Now before I start wrapping with these wires, what I just want to do is hold on to this, making sure that it's all sitting tight, and then the group that we were working with to begin with, I'm going to start bringing around the side of the bead just a little bit. We don't have to bring it all the way just yet, just something so it starts to get into the position that it will when we completely wrap it, just so it's ready for now starting to wrap with this other group. So it's basically the same principle. We grab the group as if it was just one, making sure they're all flat next to each other, go around the side of the very first bead, and then cross over above it, and then bring the wires back behind to come out the same side. Now the first one here you can't really see it so obviously, but if we go to the next one, go around the side of the bead, go over the top of everything above the bead, or you could kind of say it's in between the beads we're doing it now, because the beads are already attached, and then bring them out to come out of the same side. And you can then see the effect that we get. So we're basically, the first group we're wrapping around on one side of the beads, and the other group we're wrapping around the opposite side. So now just continue with this. Bring it around the side of the bead, come over the top in between them, and then back out the same side. And then it looks like that. So just keep going like this all the way till the other end. So now I've reached the other end, it's time to start finishing off the ends of our wires here and also complete the ends there. And as you can see, both ends of this piece are now in the same position. So I'm just going to show you how to do it on one end. So what we'd do is, first of all, before bringing this group of wires around the side of that last bead, which is the last thing left we have to do to complete the embellishment, same principle there on the other end. So before we do that, what I'm going to do is finish off these short little tails, because otherwise that'll be a little bit hard. The other wires will be in the way. So we have the 3 wires, and what I'm going to do is, they're already wrapped around the base wire there from when we attached them. So all I'm going to do now is just grab one at a time, just starting with the inner one first of all. Continue the wrap. Kind of just bring it around over the top to the other side. And then cut off the excess. And then you just want to make sure to push down that very end of the wire. And that's basically finished that off. Now I'm grabbing the next one. Doing the same thing. Grab hold of it. Bring it over the top, so I'm just continuing the wrap in the same direction that I would naturally go in. Cut off the excess. And then flatten that down. And the final one as well. That we just bring around to the other side there. And I'm just using my chain pliers here just because the lengths are so short that it's easier to grab onto. Using the pliers. Cut that off and flatten that down as well. So we got rid of the short ends there. Now what we have left are these longer ends that we used to bring around the side, and like I said, we just have that final bead left. So what I'm going to do is bring same principle as if there were one wire, the whole group there around the side of the bead, and then over the top of the wire. Now I'm not going to then bring all 3 of them around the back like I have done before. What I'm going to do is actually, they're in position here, I'm going to take one at a time. So I'm grabbing the first one, separating that out first of all, which will be the one closest to the bead. And then just grab hold of that. And then above the other wraps there, make sure it lands, so we're actually wrapping this around the base wire and not the other wraps. And then bringing that around by itself first of all. And then wrapping it around an extra time by itself. And then bringing it out to the side. Then I grab the next one. Do the same thing. Wrap that around the base wire. Make sure it's above the other ones. Wrap it around a full time here. And the last one. And you can see we then still get that effect of the wires going around the side of the bead, but we're just also now finishing them off. And I'm doing it this way because the best way to finish off a wire before you cut it is by wrapping it around another wire, like a base wire, by itself. Instead of, say, a group of wires, you need to kind of wrap it by itself once or twice, ideally a couple of times. So we have these ready now. So all that's left to do is finish them off. So again, I'm just grabbing one at a time. Just do the first one. Bring it a little bit further around so it kind of comes towards where the wires are crossing over. Because then when I go and cut off the excess, and I then go and push down that little end that's sticking out, that will kind of end up going underneath those wires that are crossing over and get tucked away nicely. And then just grab the next one, same thing, bring it further around. Cut off the excess and flatten it down. And the very last one, just bring it towards the other side there. and then flatten that down as well. And then just make sure you can't feel any of the ends sticking out. If you can, just squish them down a bit more. So there we go. That's now all the 0.5mm wires that we used for the embellishment finished off on this end here. So like I said, just go to the other end and repeat the exact same thing. So I finished off both ends here, and I have this piece ready. What I then like to do before starting to shape anything is actually repeat this. So I end up with 2 of the same, because then you can also easily compare them, make sure they're the same length, because the length of these will determine how large the earring is going to be. So I have both ready. Then what we want to do is start shaping it. Now I'm just going to be turning these into a teardrop shape, so I just want to start putting a curve into it. And what I'm making sure to do is that this side here that I'm going to want to be the front. I haven't finished the embellishment yet, but you can kind of see a difference. This is one side and this is the other side. There's more of the beads showing on one side, and there's more of the wires kind of hugging the beads on another side. So where you can see more of the wire, that's what I kind of consider the front. So I'm just going to make sure that that's kind of facing outward as I'm making the shape here. So I'm just gradually putting a curve into it on the bottom, and then bringing the 2 ends together so it can create that teardrop shape. Now it doesn't have to be perfect just yet, because we can always manipulate it more. The main thing is really just we can attach the 2 ends together and also then be able to make the loop at the top here. So I'm just going to grab some plain nose pliers, and then I have, in my case here, I have my right one as I'm looking at it crossing over the left one. Doesn't really matter how you do this, however you find it best for you. And I'm just making sure that they're crossing over right where those wraps are, so right above them. I'm grabbing the back one here then, and just putting a bend into it and bringing the wire more straight up, so just a little kink there, something like that. Then I'm going to take the other one that's wrapping in front of it, and I'm going to start wrapping this around, so like that. You can see, don't worry about the shape, because it will probably go a little bit out of shape as you're finishing it off as well. You can always adjust that. But then just wrap this around one full time, and then wrap it a bit further towards the back here. So something like that. So it's secured nicely now. Then I'm going to go in, cut off the excess, and always again make sure to just push down that very end so it's not sticking out too much. So now we have the top there attached and it's nice and secure. We have the teardrop shape, as you can see. I'm then going to use the last remaining wire here to create the loop that we can then use to attach to the earring findings. So I'm going to go in, again, place my pliers on this length of wire, kind of put my piece sideways and go up just a couple millimeters above the last wrap there, and then put a bend into this. Then I'm going to grab my 6-step bell making pliers here. You can also use round nose pliers, but I just like these because you can choose what step you want for the size that loop you want, and make sure to use that so you know you get exactly the same size loop every time. I'm just going to use the smallest one. Place that on the bend basically, and bring the end around the pliers. So we end up getting a complete circle. And what I then like to do is take my chain nose, grab onto that circle nicely so it doesn't move out of shape, while I'm then taking the end and wrapping it around the little space that we're left, a few millimeters, until it reaches the other wrap. You can see we're filling it in. And it's coming around towards the back. And then I'm just going to go in, cut off the excess here as well. squeeze the end down. Let's tighten everything up. And then we have our loop done, where we can then just use our jump ring to attach it straight to our earring findings. So all that's left to do now is finish off the embellishment here. Now of course, if you just like the way it looks here, you can just leave it like this. But I'm just going to show you how I do that otherwise. So we have all the wire wrapped around the sides of the beads. Now you can choose to do this with each bead, or you can choose to alternate. What I'm going to be doing is alternate. I'm going to leave one bead like this, and then I'm going to do the other embellishment on the next one and kind of alternate between that. So it's completely up to you what you want to do. But what I'm going to do is, in this case, I'm just going to skip the first one first of all. Then we'll have, as you can see, we have 3 wires on either side of the bead. So that's what I want to deal with. So I want to move them. So I'm just using my nails here, kind of getting nails in between, and then I'm pushing the wires up and down the sides of the bead. Now you might find that some of the other ones on the beads next to the one you're working with will move a bit, maybe open up a bit. You can just adjust that afterwards. Just push anything together. So that's kind of opening up the 3 wires on the one side. So I'm bringing one further in over towards the middle. Then on the other side, I'm taking the top one there, separate that out and just push that in towards the middle. So they get closer to each other. And then I've got 2 left that I'm just going to separate out as well. You can bring one further towards the middle, and you can also bring the outer one further towards the back. It's completely up to you how you want this to look, really. But you can see the different look that that gives. It's kind of like the wires are wrapping around all the way like a cage, whereas on the other ones it's more open, but you just have the wires around the sides. But then here, this is how I want it to look. I'm going to skip the next one and then take the one after that and do the same. So just start to move the wires on the side of the bead, and then do the other side as well, just until you're happy with how it looks. And you can see it's easy just to do this using your nails to try and avoid damaging anything if you're using pliers. So I'm alternating, as you can see, and this is what it's going to end up looking like. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around, and also of course on the other one as well. So once you've finished up the embellishment to how you like it, your earrings are done and ready to wear. So you have your cute candy spirals earrings that are completely customizable depending on your personal preference. For instance, the pair that I made in the tutorial, I used 4mm rounds, but I also have an example using 6mm rounds, and you can really see the difference between them. So it all depends on your personal preference. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to check out the other tutorials for the other pieces in this set here. But thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.